Hi, I'm mezzo-soprano Megan Ihnen. I recently gave the keynote speech for the Iowa Thespian Leadership Day, and I wanted to take a moment to share that with you right now. It is such an honor to be speaking here today for the Iowa Thespian Leadership Day, which is devoted to brainstorming, strategizing, and building robust theater programs across our state, with student leaders at every turn. The Iowa Thespians has been a constant leader championing theater education in our state. Theater means so much to us. It gives us a place to find our tribe, to push our limits, and sometimes sing show tunes at the absolute top of our lungs in the halls at school. But theater education will give you so much more than that. It will teach you some of the most important life skills you will learn in school. How to look confident when you don't feel it. How to empathize with somebody you totally disagree with. How to lie convincingly about your late homework. Trust me, these are all essential skills in college. The Iowa Thespians understand that theater education gives us the opportunity to showcase our skills in both performance and technical theater. And on days like today, it allows us to acknowledge each other and recognize the work we're all doing. Like many of us here today, theater education has always been a huge part of my life. Now, many of you may know my family connection to the IHSSA, but even when I was still in elementary school, I already looked up to the high school student leaders in theater. In elementary school, my family lived in Lamars, Iowa, and my dad taught speech and theater at the high school there. Our family would host raucous thespian parties at our house, and there would be enormous stacks of pizza and pop bottles as far as the eye could see. If this was theater, I was all in. But my favorite part of the day was watching these talented, hilarious, beautiful high school idols of mine play theater games in our yard. There's just nothing like watching the dreamy quarterback stuff 12 marshmallows in his mouth and cry out, "Pudgy bunny." Those students were golden, magical in my eyes. They were confident, funny, and charismatic. I wanted to be just like them. And when I see a room full of confident, funny, and charismatic high schoolers, it takes me back to the feeling of those golden afternoons. You might not see it now, but today is one of your golden afternoons, no matter what the weather outside is doing. Today is going to be a day of good ideas and even better collaborations. But I urge you all to understand that today is also a day of reflection, because this is a day in which you decide what kind of impact you want to have in your theater program, in your local community, and as agents of theater in your state. When I reflect on what theater has meant in my life, it's not the golden afternoons that had the most significant impact. In fact, the power of the theater and of my theater education affected me most on one of the darkest days of my life. I've never really spoken publicly about this before, and it's difficult to bring up and certainly doesn't make for rousing dinner table conversation, but I think it's important because life isn't all about golden afternoons. No matter who you are, how talented, how smart, how attractive, you will face some dark days. And it's at those times when the power of the theater shines the most bright. 9 years ago, almost to the very date, I was violently assaulted by a stranger while walking to my new apartment from my new job. I had just moved to Baltimore, Maryland for graduate school, and I was in love with the city. I'd been accepted into the prestigious Peabody Conservatory to study opera performance. My apartment had central air. My new job at Fogo de Chão meant I would have free meals. I was living the life. And then suddenly it all changed. Before I even knew what was happening, before I even could see my attacker, I was falling downstairs, shielding my face from being punched, and then it all went black. When I opened my eyes, I was in an ambulance, and I made it into an emergency room in Baltimore before I even stepped foot in one of my school's performance halls. It was a record, even for Baltimore. While I was recovering from 10 staples and a potentially deviated septum, my first thought was how it would affect my singing and my ability to start graduate school. My second feeling was deep existential confusion. Why would a mugger, someone who was confidently experienced in stealing money, target me, clearly a graduate student. It's the worst target ever. Graduate students never have any money. Afterwards, I was nervous about walking on the street by myself. I would gasp if someone ran up behind me too quickly. When the word of the attack spread, one of my professors reassured me, "You know, Megan, we would all understand if you decided to move back home to Iowa." And for a few minutes, I thought about it. But my ambition made me strong. Because although I learned that the world could be a terribly dark place, I also learned how much performing meant to me. I was never going to give up on my dream to become a professional singer, and that guy, whoever he is, still sitting in jail, was not going to take it away from me. I had worked too hard, and I was not going back to another Iowa winter, not when I had a free meal a day and a performance career waiting for me in Baltimore. My ambition made me strong, and my education made me strong. Because I remembered that Leonard Bernstein quote that my orchestra teacher told my class on September 11th. "This will be our reply to violence, to make music more intensely, more beautifully, more devotedly than ever before." And that's a quote that's coming across my Facebook feed a little too often these days. Giving a lot of artists and musicians strength right now in the face of terrible bombings, war, and disease going around the world at this moment. Theater and art and music make us strong. I'm sharing this with you in the hopes that today, as you think about what is coming up for you in the next school year, you will be inspired to take the next step, to not let anyone take away your drive to reach your goals, and that you will be making art more intensely and more devotedly than before. The question is not if you will have dark days. You will. And today I want to talk about what we do with those and how we use our passion for art to become emotional and civic leaders. As someone who is dedicated to performance, community building, and audience experience in the arts, I'm here to tell you that there are steps that we can take to become civic leaders. I want to focus on 3 B's: build your team, brainstorm, and bring to light. The fundamental nature of a leader is exposed in these 3 areas. The first B is build your team. This is the belief that we are not alone and that we cannot do this by ourselves. This is the fundamental understanding that in theater and in the arts, we can truly create something bigger, something greater than the sum of its parts. Everyone here has been in a show with someone who shows up late to rehearsals, who rejects the ideas of others, who doesn't take a vested interest in the project, or takes over every single moment to make sure the spotlight is firmly secured on them. Don't be that person. They're not really leaders. We want to build solid teams in which people feel engaged. Members of the group participate positively and actively towards the group's goals. Real leaders are the football quarterback who isn't too full of himself to play pudgy bunny with the rest of his castmates. Real leaders invite students from various backgrounds to participate. Real leaders invite people who may be struggling to join a supportive group. Real leaders give newbies a place to belong. Real leaders make audience members feel welcome and wanted because they're on your team too. Real leaders know that their community reaches far beyond the outer walls of your performance space. And that is why it's important to build your team. The second B is brainstorm. And I hope you're about to do a whole bunch of this today. Brainstorming is making sure that each participant of the project has thought hard to come up with creative solutions to reach a broader goal. The rules of brainstorming are: defer judgment, encourage wild, creative ideas, build on the ideas of others, stay focused on the topic, Have one productive conversation at a time, be visual, and set outrageous goals. I play this game with my voice students in which I force them to come up with or brainstorm as many words as possible to describe the ideal sound they hear in their mind. We usually get to about 3 before they say, I don't know. So I push them. What are other qualities or characteristics you haven't imagined yet? When I was assaulted in Baltimore, I was shocked. I was confounded. How could this happen? This isn't what my life looks like. As I started to regain some sense of safety and confidence, I thought to myself, if I thought that wasn't what my life looked like, what are some other areas of my life where maybe I'm not imagining the fullness of my experience here? These were scary ideas at first, but they became positive thoughts. If I know those lows, how high can I go? I want you to brainstorm the seemingly impossible today. I want you to think of the limit you see and then ask yourself, what would happen if that wasn't there? How can you be responsible for augmenting the vision of your program today? Brainstorm. Brainstorm. How far can you go? That brings me to my third B, which is bring to light. Believe that your work, that your art can have an impact. As artists, we reflect our world, real and imagined, back to our viewers. We must take this charge very seriously. Culture, more specifically the arts, teaches us about family roles, thought patterns, pride, personal space, attitudes towards the environment, gender roles, biases, self-concept, and so much more. These are often difficult lessons for people to put into words. Heck, it's difficult for parents to put these lessons into words for their children. But when we put them into stories, the impact can be so much greater. Meisner wrote, acting is behaving truthfully under imaginary circumstances. We have this incredible ability to uncover the root causes of issues. And yes, being a leader through the arts is amorphous. It can take on many shapes and topics, including a mixture of politics, values, laws, economics, and humanitarian issues. But often in our arts, we express stories that pit our inner world against the world at large. This is such a unique perspective and benefit to those who witness our stories, and it is our responsibility to them. Dozens of voices around us will suggest that situations can't or shouldn't change, but we must ask ourselves the question, are there behaviors or conditions that we simply must address in our community? Some changes can be easy and simple. Some changes take a lot of time. But think for a moment about all the discrete actions, all the artwork that has led to giant changes in our culture. As agents of the theater, we have decided to take action. We as a people agree to live by a social contract that defines how we will behave toward one another in a community. Whether you define that community as a small town, an online group, or something much bigger, we can help strengthen, inform, and grow that understanding of community through our art practices. And there is a fourth B, which is of course Hamilton. Just kidding, that doesn't start with B. These 3 B's are obviously not just for theater work. It is my hope that build your team, brainstorming, and bringing to light will be core principles in your life. Let's just take a moment to be thankful that theater and the arts have been the door that has opened you to all of these life skills. One of the most important performing moments of my life happened in 2012 when I was singing at the final marathon concert for the Bang on a Can Festival in Massamoka in Massachusetts. I was singing what I thought was an absolute giant of the repertoire, Ancient Voices of Children by George Crumb. The final phrases of the piece, translated from Spanish, are, "And I will go very far, farther than the seas, close to the stars. I remember clearer than anything, sitting backstage, pondering those lines, and recalling my assault in Baltimore. Then, immediately thinking, I am the same woman who was there that is here. And today, I am the same woman who was there that is right here. And I will go very far indeed. It is my wish that you will go very far, that you will go beyond what you have already imagined, that you will take those visions back to your community and make great art. It is my sincere hope that you will encourage each other, that you will build your team, because theater should always be greater than the sum of its parts. It is my goal that you are moved today to bring issues to light, and that above all, when you see the violence, the ugliness in the world, that you will draw back to these golden afternoons and make your art more beautifully, more intensely, and more devotedly than ever before. Thank you. Thank you for being here today.